Hello everybody, I'm Rowan6 with Rowan6 Entertainment, and welcome to a new series, a audiobook series of my fanfiction, The Dragon Hero Dovahkiin. The background art for this fanfiction is created by me. If you're interested in me doing art commissions for you, the link to my business Discord is down below. There's also a link to my community Discord, as well as the fanfiction link. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
Melissa was being escorted to the training grounds at UA, and by a hobo-looking person no less. The man had black greasy hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. He was wearing a black jumpsuit, a white scarf, a yellow pair of goggles around his neck, and he looked extremely tired. She tried multiple times to get information out of him, but she got nothing. She even didn't get his name. He just ignored her and mumbled to himself. It was something about problem children and more work. She had no idea why she was somehow a problem child. Especially when she did nothing wrong. But as she walked beside the man, her thoughts drifted to another topic that had been bugging her. She had her doubts about this magic stuff, but if any of it is true, her dream of being a hero will be within her reach. And even if she couldn't use magic, they did say they would train her in other skills. However, her thoughts were interrupted as they got to the outdoor training facility. She could see that the training facility was the size of a football field and had high-bearing walls all around it for the sake of privacy. But what she wasn't expecting was the sound of clashing metal. Curious, she steps onto the training field to find two people having an intense spar. Both combatants were wielding swords that she hoped were blunted. Because how they were fighting meant if one of them slipped up, it would mean either one of them would be dead or maimed. One was her trainer, Izuku Midoriya, and the other she did not know the name of. She was obviously around the same age as her. She has long brown hair that reaches her shoulders, and she has brown eyes and fair skin. She had a noticeable scar that went down the side of one of her eyes. This made her quite beautiful. Now focusing on the fight itself, she could see how skilled they were in the art of the blade just by looking at them. It was almost like a dance of some sort. And if it wasn't for the effort they were putting behind it, she would have guessed it would have been choreographed. The fight lasted another minute before finishing up. When it did, Izuku walked over to Melissa and began to speak. "Good, you're here. This is Lydia, she is the one I told you about in the meeting, and ... Izuku started to say before being cut off by a voice behind Melissa that spoke straight into her ear. "Well, you smell nice." A female voice says huskily into Melissa's ear. This caused Melissa to jump towards Izuku and to make her blush in embarrassment. Her embarrassment only grew as she saw that Lydia, Izuku, and the newcomer were laughing at her. Finally looking at the newcomer who snuck up on her, she quickly noticed how beautiful she was. The girl had raven black hair, slightly pale skin, and blue-slitted eyes. She was currently kneeling as she was grasping at her side in pain from laughter. I'm sorry I couldn't help myself," Serena said between her laughter. Getting a hold of herself, she speaks again. "I'm Serena, it is a pleasure to meet you. I'll most likely be your teacher in alchemy, the illusion school of magic, and if Izuku will let me, possibly the school of conjuration. And enchanting as well," Serena said with a smile as she held out her hand for Melissa to shake, which she did before asking her question. "Wait, I thought Izuku was teaching me magic," Melissa said in surprise. "You are correct, he will be teaching you how to use magic. However, there are 4 schools of magic, not including alchemy and enchanting. The illusion school, the school of conjuration, alchemy, and enchanting, are my specialties. Even though Izuku is a master in every field of magic. My 1,000 years of experience in the illusionary arts as well as alchemy outstrip his. Serena said with a confident smile, that showed off her fangs. 1,000 years, how is that possible? You look just as old as me. Melissa asked in shock and disbelief. Serena just giggled at that. Then Izuku spoke up. That's because she is a vampire. Well, a vampire hybrid now. Izuku said, shocking Melissa further. Wait, vampires exist, and how is she a vampire hybrid now? I have so many questions. Melissa asked in disbelief. But before Izuku could explain further, the sound of somebody clearing their throat could be heard from behind them. Looking behind them, they were greeted with the sight of Nemuri in her hero costume. I know you probably have a lot of questions for our resident dragon slayers, but we should save them for after today's training. Nemuri said as she walked over to the group. Why are you here, Midnight? Melissa asked curiously. Nizu sent me to supervise your guys' training. Unfortunately, I do not have all day to do so, so we better start. Nemuri said, causing Izuku to nod his head in agreement before speaking up. She's right. Izuku says as he summons a chest in front of him. As he opens it, he pulls out a set of wizard robes, that looked a little too big for Melissa's liking. Not to be rude, but these seem a little too big for me. Melissa said, as Izuku handed her the wizard robes. Oh, trust me, they'll fit. They're enchanted with the resizing enchantment, as well as an enchantment that makes it easier to use magic, and to cast spells. Izuku said, causing Melissa to nod. She still didn't know if this magic thing was still real. But she had come this far. So, heading into the nearest locker room, she got dressed in the wizard robes. She was quite surprised when she slipped them on that they shrunk in size to fit her almost immediately. They were also extremely comfortable and warm. It also gave her complete freedom of movement. Rubbing the fabric between her fingers, she could tell the fabric was made of a sturdy material but otherwise completely normal. There was no way technology was involved for these clothes to shrink. A quirk perhaps? Or were these clothes really enchanted? Well, she guessed that she was going to get answers to that question eventually. She just hopes that this wasn't some cruel elaborate trick being played on her. That very thought almost made her go into a spiral of negativities and what-ifs. But she was quickly able to stop that from happening. Composing herself, she finished up and then walked outside. Which causes Serena to whistle in appreciation at her appearance. Damn girl, you look good. Those robes really work for you. Serena said, with a grin as her eyes raked over her. This caused Melissa to blush heavily. But it was true, though, it did look good on her. The outfit hugged her body and showed off her curves. It also accented her breasts and showed off her sizable bust, but not in a way that showed off too much and made her uncomfortable. It was a perfect mix between sexy and modesty. To be honest, she was considering making this her hero costume. Well, parts of it anyway. All she had to do was make some tweaks here and there and add some of the gadgets that she made for herself. That's if she needed them anymore. She was starting to think that this magic stuff was a lot more powerful than whatever she could make, and probably as versatile if the clothes that they gave her were anything to go off of. The simple sizing enchantment had so many applications just on its own. What other enchantments were there, could she dash? Her thoughts were cut off by the voice of Izuku. Well, I think we should start now, first things first. The first thing you must understand is that magic, by its very nature, is volatile and dangerous. Unless you can control it, it can, and will destroy you. That's why our first lessons will be focusing on control, and see if you could even use magic in the first place. Which, again, I'm pretty sure that you can. Izuku said as he sat down in a lotus position. Giving a gesture to Melissa to mimic him, she too sits down. The first thing you're going to learn is how to gather magical energy into your mana pool. Now I want you to close your eyes, take slow and deep breaths, and clear your mind. Once I'm satisfied that you are perfectly calm, I am going to pour a potion down your throat. Do not stop your meditation. When I do so, you will feel a warm sensation around your body. You will also feel a strange energy enter it through your skin and into your core. I want you to memorize that sensation. How it flows, how it enters you, and how it fills up your core. Do you understand? Izuku says as he looks straight into Melissa's eyes. I understand, but I have a question. With a nod from Izuku, she continued. What kind of potion are you going to pour down my throat? Melissa asked curiously, and a little worried. Pulling out a dark blue potion, he started to explain. This, he said as he held out the potion, is a mana regeneration potion that is heavily diluted. A normal potion like this would regenerate your mana within minutes and higher quality ones within seconds. The effects last up to 2 to 5 minutes depending on the quality of the potion. These potions are usually meant for long drawn-out fights. The functionality is also quite simple. The potion stimulates your body's mana pool in such a way that forces your body to absorb mana into your mana pool. Izuku said, but seeing the concerned looks on Midnight and Melissa's faces, he was quick to dissuade their fears. Don't worry, like I said, this potion is heavily diluted. It should take a few seconds to activate and only last up for a minute and draw in barely enough mana for you to notice it. This will also prove that you can even use magic in the first place, since it won't work unless you have a mana pool to begin with. I also have a counter potion on hand just in case anything goes wrong. Izuku said, successfully dissuading their fears for the moment. With a nod from Melissa, she closed her eyes and started to clear her mind and calm herself. It was a good 2 minutes before she felt something against her lips and then for a liquid to pour down her throat. The liquid was thick and tasted bitter and a bit tangy. The few seconds for the liquid to take effect felt like an eternity of what-ifs and depressing thoughts. Thoughts like her not being able to use magic, of her being a disappointment, that she was going to remain useless, and that her dreams of being a hero were never going to happen. But all those thoughts dissipated once she felt a warm sensation go out through her body that hovered just right over her skin. A steely resolve settled in her mind and then she focused on this feeling. And there it was, she could feel it now, the energy entering her. She could barely notice it, but without a shadow of a doubt, it was there. It was chaotic and right off the bat she could tell how volatile it was. But she was not afraid of it for some reason, even though she knew how dangerous it was. It just felt natural for it to enter her body and for it to flow through it, almost like she was meant to wield this power. Following the instructions that her green-hair teacher gave her, she focused on how it entered her, where it went, and how it operated. She did not know how long she sat there for, Was it minutes, hours, days? She could not tell. But when the effects of the potion wore off, the trickle of power entering her was cut off as well. Opening her eyes, she was greeted by her green-haired teacher's blinding smile. "Good job, Melissa, you just made your first step into a world that will blow your mind," Izuku said, smiling. And blow her mind it did. For the next 2 hours she was practicing on how to refill her mana pool without the aid of a potion and some control exercises. Nemuri, seeing Melissa, decided to join in as well. Although Nemuri struggled at first, she was getting a hang of it. After that, Melissa's hand-to-hand combat training began, which lasted another 2 hours, then another hour of Izuku teaching her how to use a sword and bow. Then finally wrapping up with 2 hours worth of strength training by cleaning up Takaba Beach. This pattern of training continued for 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks, there wasn't a time that she did not come home sore and exhausted. But every time when she came home, she had a smile on her face. Because she knew, she was getting closer to her goal of becoming a hero with every training session, and she could not be happier.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!